All right, so welcome to this video on understanding time use. And so hopefully, through this video, you'll be able to feel empowered that you have control of your time and you have a better understanding of how you use your time in terms of what are your priorities, okay? Let me tell you a bit of a background in terms of my upbringing, right? So, for the longest time, I've divided, kind of in my head, I've divided people into two categories, right? And the first are your go-getters, right? They're the ones who rule the world. They're so organized. They're so disciplined, like robots, right? Couldn't understand how on earth they could wake up at the same time every day, exercise, eat well, diet, be disciplined, get the work done, and all these kind of things. And they never seem to make any mistakes, right? And then there was like people like me, right? People who kind of we're the straw boat that you put in a stream, and we just kind of float down the stream and go wherever the stream takes us, right? So we're the ones who kind of just, where we go with the flow. We do whatever we feel like. If I can't help doing this, then that's just who I am, right? And that's just the way that I am, right? I kind of lived a lot of my high school years and my teenage years kind of with that mentality. But one of the things I quickly came to realize was that, when you go and you just kind of let yourself go down the stream, you can't really go where you want to go. And so I noticed that really quickly that, hold on, if I actually want to be a certain type of person, if I actually want to achieve my goals and my dreams in life, I can't just have this attitude of go with the flow. I have to actually learn how to control my time, learn how to actually manage my time well, so that I can actually achieve things that I want to achieve in life. And so hopefully, if that's you and you feel like you're the go with the flow kind of person, that you can feel empowered that, hold on, it doesn't have to be like that. Just like how it didn't have to be like that with me, it doesn't have to be like that with you. And how do we do that, right? How do we actually learn to manage our time well and use our time and understand our time to get us to where we want to go? All right, so that's what I want to do in this video. So let's jump into it, okay? All right, guys. So let's take a look at how do we actually understand our time use. Okay, so this is a bit of a handy tool just to kind of get you started on understanding what are your priorities and what are you actually spending time doing. Because the better we understand how we use our time, the better we understand where our priorities are actually at. Okay, so I'm doing this on an Excel spreadsheet, but you can just do this with a pen and paper and that'll probably achieve the same result if you really want. Okay, so I've just kind of split it into two columns. One are, what are your current priorities? What's really important to you during this time, this season, this year, this 6 months, this 3 months, this whatever time frame you've set for yourself? What's really important to you? Okay, and then in the other one, what are you actually spending time in your week doing, right? And then having consider the number of hours invested into each. Okay, so let's go ahead and put down some of my priorities. And so, there are a few things that are given, and maybe I'm going to say spending time with family, and maybe, that's maybe about 7 hours. Making sure that, for me, a big priority is making sure I'm home for dinner every night this week, or every night in the season. So that's going to take about 7 hours, making sure that I'm always home for dinner, and that's going to be a priority. Okay, let's say I'm a student and I am going to want to spend time improving on a certain subject. So improving on, I'm going to say year 11 biology, because that's what I teach, right? And I think that as a priority to improve on year 11 biology, it's probably going to take me about 3 hours of extra time a week to actually put into biology and get better at biology. Okay. Another big priority for me is contacting friends, and that's going to probably, no, it's not going to take a heap amount of priority, but maybe I'm going to want to invest about 2 hours of extra time in any given week to make sure that I am maintaining contact with my friends during this time. And I'm going to say playing guitar. Learning the guitar, that's probably going to take another 3 hours. And let's say one of the things that I want to set for myself as a really big goal and priority is to set up an aquarium and to exercise. Okay, and I'm just going to roughly estimate that's going to take about an hour, and that's going to take about 2 hours a week. Okay, so I'm going to start, and you know what, let's be modest, let's go 1 hour, because that's going to be a modest amount of time that I want to make sure that I'm investing into myself in this given week. So there you go. Here we can see that my priorities currently reflect that I need to invest 17 hours a week into these relative categories, right? Now, what do I actually spend my time doing? What am I actually spending my weeks doing? And so here, we're going to be a bit more general. We're going to list down on average, what are you spending the amount of hours a week doing in your given week? So I'm going to go ahead and list a few things. Yeah, I sleep 50 hours a week. Yeah, 7 hours a night and maybe 8 hours on the weekends or something like that. It's going to give me 51 hours. Some of you guys will probably be higher. Some of you might be lower. Okay. And then from there, you can probably list down a few other things. So, I'm at school probably for about 32 hours a week, and I work for church for about 7 hours a week there. And maybe I also go to church on Sundays. That's 2 hours. Youth group on Fridays. That's 2 hours. And I have prayer with my friends for 2 hours. And I will probably say, now I'm going to list down my leisurely things that I like to do, right? And so probably I play video games. Video games. And if I'm really honest with myself, I probably play a bit too much. I'm going to say about 9 hours of video games a week, mostly on the weekends. I do play guitar, but I actually don't play that much. So I'm going to say maybe about 1 hour a week at the very max. And let's say, for example, I am going to put social media, and to be honest, I probably do too much, and that's going to be maybe about 7 hours. I probably do about an hour or so before I go to sleep at night, and so that's about 7 hours of, and you kind of get my point. So now I'm starting to list down what are my big priorities. Now, here's the kicker, right? Let's see if we can go from descending order, right? Oops, I just realized I've actually removed that by accident, and that's okay. So, all right. So, if I was to look at my priorities, right, apart from the things that are kind of necessary, my number one leisurely item in my list is actually video games, right? And that kind of tells me a lot because, here I have all of these goals of spending time with family and things like that. And, the number one thing that I spend my leisurely time doing is playing video games, and then followed by work for church and social media. So I actually spend more time or just as much time on social media as I do for all of my other things kind of put together, right? And if I was to look at that and I kind of think to myself, like, is that where my priority is, right? Is that where my priority is? And so, you kind of have to, when you analyze your timetable, be realistic and kind of think to yourself, what am I actually spending my time doing? And is reflecting what is it that I really want and what is it that I really desire? And so, my goals say one thing, but my time actually says something entirely different. Okay. All right. So hopefully, that little exercise was able to get you a bit of a snapshot of how you actually use your time versus one of some things that you consider as being important to you. And I want to bring out kind of 3 principles around understanding time use. Okay. The first one is that we all have the same amount of time. Everybody has 168 hours a week to use. And, you minus the amount of sleep time, roughly we all have the same amount of waking hours that we end up using. And for some of us, we look at other people and we kind of think, man, how did they get all that stuff done? How did they, kind of end up being that way? It's not like they have 25 hours in a day or more time to do what they do, right? Everybody has the same amount of time, and it comes down to what we actually spend our time doing, right? And so that brings me to principle number 2. Number 2 is that we all have a choice. And I feel like sometimes young people feel so much like life, or just people in general really, feels like life just kind of drags them along, and you can't help but do whatever it is that you're doing. You can't help but feel like you're being lazy and spending too much time on social media or video games, or that you don't have this choice. You can't help it. And so that's to me, that is the biggest lie that we've all been sold, is that you can't help it, right? At the end of the day, we all have a choice. You are the individual who determines what you spend your time doing. And there are some extenuating circumstances that you probably can't help. But for the most part, you are in control of your time. And it is, at the end of the day, your choice to spend that time playing video games or going to onto social media or whatever that you do that you find unproductive, and it is not how you want to spend your time. We all have a choice. And I want to empower you to think that, hold on, don't feel like you're just being strung along in life. Take control of the way that you spend your time and take control of the direction of your life and feel empowered that, hold on, I have a choice. I don't want to make excuses and say that I can't help playing video games or I can't help being lazy. I have a choice and I'm going to make my choice. I'm going to make my choice to be productive. I'm going to make my choice to study hard for school. I'm going to make my choice to invest in that hobby that I've always wanted to invest into. I'm going to make that choice, right? And so that brings me to principle number 3, right? Is that when we choose to say yes to one thing, we are always saying no to something else, right? When we choose to say yes to spending our time on this one thing, like for example, social media or video games or guitar or whatever, right? I'm saying no to something else that I could have spent my time doing. Right. And so when you understand that principle, before you even start that activity, you kind of think to yourself, what am I actually saying no to by engaging in this activity, right? What am I saying no to by spending my time doing this activity that I'm doing? And is that something that I really want, right? If I get home from school or from home from work and I kind of stop and I open my computer and the first thing I think about is maybe I'll just hop onto my social media accounts and I'll just kind of scroll Facebook or Instagram or whatever, right? I got to think to myself, what am I saying no to in terms of my time that I'm using in that time? Could I be spending that time setting up that aquarium that I've always wanted to set up to, or write a book or exercise or whatever, right? And maybe that's what I really prioritize, but now I'm saying no to it. And so I have to decide, what am I saying no to when I say yes to this little activity? And so sometimes when we say yes to short-term pleasure, right, we're actually saying no to long-term gain, things that are more valuable in the long term that I'm investing into the long term, and I'm denying because I'm choosing to find pleasure in the short term right now, then and there, okay? And so those are the 3 principles I want you guys to understand. Number 1, we all have the same amount of time. Number 2, we all have a choice. And number 3, saying yes to one thing is like saying no to something else. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Next lesson, we're going to take a look at weekly schedules and how do we actually organize our weekly schedule to better reflect our priorities and our time use. Okay. I'll see you guys then.